side. Getting organized here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We're so excited to have you all here. We especially appreciate members of the media who are here with us today. We're here with Tyson Roberts on his farm, a family farm. These farms in this area have been in their family for a long time, dating back clear to 1847 when the first settlers came to this area. We appreciate have Lieutenant Governor Henderson here with me as well, and Commissioner Craig Butters from the Department of Agriculture, who is here. Reg Johnson, also with PLIPCO, is back there as well, our public lands, and we so appreciate the great work that they're doing right now. The purpose of today is to specifically focus on the plight of agriculture during this drought. I must say, we've talked a lot about drought. I know some of you are probably tired of covering drought, but it means a lot that you would come today, because the drought isn't going away yet, and we need to make sure that people understand the impacts that drought is having. It's with not more than a little dismay that I routinely hear from people that there's no need for them to conserve water because most of the water in the state is used by agriculture, and why aren't our farmers doing more? Not only are those comments very uninformed, I might say ignorant, they also just don't understand the nature of water, the nature of food, and the nature of agriculture in our state. And so I believe it's really important that we dispel some of those myths that are out there, and help people understand that nobody is being impacted more, and nobody has done more to cut back on water usage in this state than our farmers. Utah farms and ranches have seen water cuts between 70 and 75% on most farms. As a result, that's dramatically reducing crops. And when you dramatically reduce crops, the impacts to food supply are great, but also for our ranchers, and the impacts to the animals, the weight of the animals that they're raising, the amount of animals that they can raise are significant. On our own farm, we raise alfalfa, oat hay, and some other grains that are sold to other farmers in the area, other ranchers in the area. We've seen a 75% reduction in water on my own farm, and in production capacity. Now we're very fortunate. We're a small family farm. We have other jobs for years since my grandfather passed away from cancer at a young age. My dad realized that the farm would not support one family, let alone multiple families, and so everybody's had to have another job while we continue to work on the farm and keep that farm in production. But we have many farms across the state where this is their only source of income. They create jobs across rural Utah, and even here, as you can see, right in the middle of the Wasatch Front, and they rely on the sustainability of these farms and the water that is necessary to keep them going. But not just that. People forget or don't realize that food does not come from Walmart. Food does not come from the grocery store. That is not where food comes from. Food comes from the men and women, the families who are growing this food, making it possible, and putting food on our tables. So we're going to hear more about what Utah farmers are experiencing from Tyson. I mentioned our ranchers. Pasture and grazing forage for livestock is very limited right now, and hay crops will be severely limited this year. This is resulting in a severe hay shortage, which means that the prices for hay that is available are shooting up. We've seen that hay prices have already doubled over the last few months. So because of limited forage, so there's a compounding effect that happens here. Many of our ranchers graze their cattle, graze their sheep on public lands or on private lands. When there's no water, that grass and that forage doesn't grow nearly as high, so there's not enough for them to eat, and they have to supplement that with hay that they buy or grow themselves. Most of them buy it from other farmers. Now there's not enough water to water the hay, so there's not as much hay available as would normally be available, so the price goes up, and so now you're compounded. You don't have enough forage for your animals, and you can't afford to buy what little hay is available, and some of them, even if you have the money to buy it, it's just not available. There's just not enough, and that's leading to what we're seeing is an increased cost with these increased costs. Ranchers are being forced to sell off their livestock, right? Because they don't have enough to keep them alive, so now they've got to get rid of the livestock. What we're seeing now, some auctions are reporting a 300% increase in cattle sales. Okay, so now another compounding effect, when there's that much cattle flooding the market, the price of meat goes down, so they're getting less for those cattle. They weigh less than they would have weighed otherwise, and so they're just making less all the way around. So agriculture truly impacts every sector of our economy. We're going to feel the effects of this drought, especially amongst agriculture, for years to come. Farmers will be purchasing less seed and supplies from their neighborhood co-ops. There will be fewer equipment purchases and upgrades. Less money in general will be circulating in local economies as a result of this economic loss. So again, I just want to emphasize, if there's one thing we can do today, it's to change that narrative that if we just reduce water to farms and ranches, we'll have more water. It's just not that simple. When farmers and ranchers cut back on water, and again they are, we're all going to feel it in the cost of the food that we eat. And when the cost of food goes up, and we've certainly seen inflation happening for lots of different reasons, but the drought is just going to compound that, the people that get hurt the most are the poor in our state, because they still have to buy food. And so when the price of food goes up, the wealthy will do just fine, the middle class will do okay, they'll get through, but the most needy amongst us are going to feel it the most. So when our farmers struggle because of drought, there's a tax on the poor. That's what happens. And not just that, but water is not ubiquitous throughout the state. If a farmer in Delta cuts back on their hay production, that's not going to create one more drop of water for the people in Salt Lake City. It's just not going to happen. That's not the way water works. So it's not an either or. It's not that we should punish farmers so we could have green grass, all right? The grass at my house is not going to feed one family. The grass at my house is not going to produce any economic development in our community. The grass in my house is not going to do anything to help the greater cause in our state. But every drop that gets to these farms is going to help someone in our state, and usually multiple people and multiple families. And so it's important that we understand that we protect agriculture in our state. Last thing I want to say is this. If we lose our farms, and remember they had a bad year last year because of COVID and the supply chain disruption. So even though the drought started last year, it was a struggle because they couldn't sell meat, supplies were disrupted across the country. And if there's one thing we should have learned from that, it's that we need food to be local. Because there will be times when we won't be able to count on produce coming from Argentina or Mexico or somewhere else overseas. There may be times when we can't even count on that produce and those agriculture products coming from other states. We have to maintain some level of self-sufficiency here in our state. That's really important, and I hope we learned that. But the compounding effect of having a bad year last year and now having a bad year this year, and most of our farmers now are aging. The average age of a farmer now is around 60, maybe even north of 60 years of age in the state. There are a whole lot of people that are going to say, I'm going to have to file bankruptcy and I'm out. I'm just done. Why not just put a whole bunch of houses here on this farm? They're going to cash out. That's bad for the environment. It's bad for open space, and it's bad for the future of our state. If we lose our agriculture and we become wholly reliant on other states and other nations, then there will be a time when we suffer because of that. And so we have to do whatever is necessary to keep these farmers in business, to keep our farms going, to help them get through this crisis, and to be back better and stronger next year. So I appreciate I've taken more time than I planned on. I'm very passionate about this. I feel strongly about it, and I appreciate everybody checking in and listening. So with that, I'm going to shut up now. We're going to turn it over to the real experts. Commissioner Butters is going to spend some time with us, and then we'll have Tyson talk a little bit about what's going on the ground. So Commissioner Butters.
Thank you, Governor Cox. It's easy to see that Governor Cox has firsthand knowledge of this situation and that he is passionate about this situation. The Utah Department of Agriculture and Food recognizes that we are in an extreme drought. We're monitoring those situations. We're assessing what impacts the drought is going to have on producers as well as everyday citizens in the state of Utah. We're working with Utah State University Extension to do an assessment of the impacts on a county-by-county basis. The effects of this unprecedented drought are massive. They will be felt by every sector of our economy, and we must work to support farmers and ranchers, to support the food supply and food security locally, to ensure that producers are able to maintain economically viable operations and continue to grow and raise food and fiber for all of us. We are working to find solutions and relief for farmers and ranchers whose businesses and livelihoods are being negatively impacted. And we hope in the near future to be able to provide some relief for those farmers and ranchers. The governor talked about water conservation. I'd like to give you just a few figures about water conservation. It is, of course, a top priority for the Department of Agriculture and Food, and we have several different programs, such as our water optimization program and our grazing improvement program, that both help farmers and ranchers improve the efficiency of their irrigation systems. For example, with our water optimization program, we take water systems that generally are flooding systems they flood the water, flood the whole acreage, and water that way. We put water in large pivots, and we distribute that water and apply it close to the ground so that there's not as much evaporation, and we receive a lot more efficiency that way. This is a 2-year program so far, and in the first year, one of the important figures that we have is that there was a savings of 28,000 acre-feet of water in the first year of this program, which is 9.1 billion gallons of water. Those are some astounding figures. And this year, the applications for our water optimization program are actually up 300% above last year. This is evidence that our farmers and ranchers are interested in conserving water and providing food and fiber in a more efficient way every day. So the Department of Agriculture and Food offers many resources to help farmers and ranchers. We offer low interest loans and conservation programs to producers. We also have insect and weed control programs that we assist producers with. And just recently we have put in place a website for producers who have hay for sale and producers, livestock ranchers who may be looking for hay. And that website is ag.utah.gov/drought resources/. So we're hoping that our farmers and ranchers will use this resource. After facing severe drought conditions last year and the effects of COVID-19, as the governor mentioned, we are in an unprecedented drought, and farmers and ranchers need our support, now more than ever. We must do all that we can to conserve water, and always we encourage your support of Utah's farmers and ranchers. You can support our farmers and ranchers by buying local, by also supporting our farmers markets, by supporting farm to fork, our farm to table programs, our roadside stands, our Utah's own producers, and also we've got a great program here in the state called Farmers Feeding Utah, and we would encourage your support of all of those things. Thank you very much.
I appreciate what's been said already. Again, my name is Tyson Roberts, and my family operates Roberts Family Farms here in Layton. The land we stand on is owned by an uncle, Dan Layton, who, excuse me, I get emotional talking about family. This land dates back to that of Christopher Layton, who was the founder of the Layton and the Kaysville area. We've been on the land that we farm since 1847, as the governor mentioned. I appreciate what's been said. I feel like I'm among friends that understand the plight of farmers and agriculture right now. to say it plainly, agriculture in Utah is in survival mode right now. Some of the things that has affected us on the farm is just not enough water. We don't have enough water to grow all the crops that we should. We as well as other farmers around us have left about 10 to 15% of our land, really good productive farmland, unplanted because we don't have the water to grow the crops. In addition to that, the crops that we are growing, the quality is down, the yield is down because we're not able to get a significant amount of water to it to produce that food. One thing that the commissioner mentioned is conservation. I believe farmers are the original conservationists. That we are, when you look back at the last 30 to 40 years, farmers are raising more food with less inputs, with less water on less land. And this has been great, not only because of the farmers that want to do more, that want to produce more food, but also because of the science that has helped farmers. And the programs like the Department of Agriculture puts out there for farmers to utilize. We use some things like drip irrigation to use more water. The alfalfa behind us, we don't have enough irrigation water to produce a good alfalfa crop, but we have taken some of the tailwater that comes off of the vegetables and made ways to get that to the alfalfa so that we can try to negate some of the shortages of feed that the governor talked about. That alfalfa will go to horse owners, dairy farmers, beef producers, sheep ranchers, and whatever we can do to produce a little bit more is better for agriculture in general. I guess my final statements would be, you know, agriculture. There's farmers around still, and there's many ways to get in touch with them, and reach out to a farmer, whether it's on social media, through organizations like the Farm Bureau. There's a lot of ways to connect with farmers and learn more about how the food that your family is eating is produced. So, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Tyson. Again, thanks to all of you for being here. Some of those numbers were really mind-boggling, and I know it's when we talk about acre feet of water, that doesn't mean a lot to most people. But no. You did. We're talking billions of gallons of water. I don't know, 27,000 acre feet. Was that the number, Craig? Almost 28,000 acre feet. I mean, that's a giant reservoir. I mean, that's a big reservoir, 27,000 acre feet full, and that's the savings in just 1 year under this program. And again, we're going to have even more this year. So I agree with Tyson. Farmers use the latest scientific advancements in water. We're fortunate to have Utah State University, our land grant university, who is constantly working to help us in this area. And we farmers really do care about preserving these communities and keeping the environment clean and safe and healthy, and they really are the original conservationists. So thank you, Tyson. With that, we're happy to answer questions. You can ask questions of any of us, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. Any questions? Please.
Tyson, you mentioned that, you know, we're in survival mode right now. The governor said that we could have a lasting impact. I mean, what's your biggest fear here?
Well, when I say we're in survival mode, as I said, I left about 10 to 15% of our farmland unplanted. On a normal year where we have a good harvest, good markets, then that is about the profit for the farm, for this farm. So we're talking about, when I say survival mode, I mean, I hope I can pay the bills this year. So you look at a corporation that has gross sales and then net income, we're talking about that difference right now. And the lasting impacts, perennial crops like alfalfa, think about our orchards, our cherries, our apple, our peach producers. Those trees that are dependent for years and years and even decades could suffer severe consequences if we lose those perennial crops. So when you go to the grocery store and buy some raspberries, it might be a shorter supply this year, but also in the years to come if those plants are lost.
Any other questions? Please.
Tyson, do you want to explain how you guys are water sharing, how you're working together as farmers to kind of take care of one another?
Definitely. I mentioned about using every drop that we have, and it's unfortunate because I heard the governor speaking yesterday about water usage, and we need to find a way to get water to the Great Salt Lake because it's an important asset to our community. But we're not, on a year like this, there's not much water making it to the lake. That's unfortunate, but the farmers on different irrigation systems really work together. There's really good communication. We want to see each other succeed in what they're trying to do, but we want to see all of them survive as well and be able to do this for one more year. So a lot of communication and working together.
With all of the challenges you face, what makes you farmers? What
I'd like to hear the governor's answer for
They
this
hear
one
from me all
too.
the time. This is
but-
refreshing.
But no, you might get my emotions coming out again. It's, there's a cliche that says it's in your blood, and it is. It's something that when you're passionate about something, you want to do it. And farmers, they find a way to make it to another year. The governor mentioned, Commissioner Butters mentioned Farmers Feeding Utah. That's an example of how farmers came together during a pandemic, found a way to not only feed the hungry, but to help struggling farmers that didn't have a place to sell their products. So I would just answer that with one word. It's a passion, and you can look at anything you're passionate about and what drives you to continue doing that.
If you want to see three grown men cry, just ask us why we stayed in farming. Any other questions? Okay, I do want to just highlight a couple things that come up often. One, Farmers Feeding Utahns. There was an announcement yesterday about a subscription box, another really innovative way to get Utahns to support local farmers. I would encourage you, I don't have the website off the top of my head, but Farmers Feeding Utahns has a website, and there is a box subscription on there. For $100 a month, they will send you some amazing Utah products, steaks, jerky, all kinds of cherries, great things that are produced right here in Utah. I would encourage everyone to take advantage of that. I didn't hear the question, but we often get the question about alfalfa being exported, especially exported to China. We always hear that. Why are all these farmers making millions of dollars exporting hay to China? I just want to point out that it's a very, very small percentage of the hay that is being exported. The latest numbers, we've got about 2%. We produce over 2 billion tons of hay a year on average in this state. And so we're talking about 40,000 tons of hay that's being exported. It's a very, very small amount. Most of the hay is used here locally throughout the West to, again, feed animals, to actually bring food to our tables here locally. So I just wanted to point that out. The last thing I want to say is I just want to thank our farmers who just grind. They grind every day and every year. They live on prayers. They know that they're subject to the whims of Mother Nature and a God in heaven who helps to make all of this come together and to work. We've been able to keep these farms and families for generations. We would lose a significant part of who we are as a state and as a country, the very best of us, if we were to lose these farms. So please just encourage everyone to do their part. If everyone conserves, our farmers can produce a little bit more this year and get through and be back even better and stronger next year. So thanks for coming. I'm sure any of these guys, especially Tyson, would love to be mic'd up and take any one-on-ones that you have. And I think he's got family spread throughout here too. So just grab a farmer and ask him questions. Thanks, everyone.
So the governor and Farmer Tyson, they'll be taking a tour down the lane